things are much worse. Partially, it's because now we're looking at 5 failed rainy seasons as opposed to 2 in 2011. But we're also looking at other factors that are contributing, such as climate change, insecurity, and global volatility in food and fuel prices. Thankfully, today we have 10 years of investment in government systems and social safety nets and community resilience. And so actually what we're looking at the moment, thankfully, are less mortality, but the scale and scope of the people who require assistance is much, much larger than it was 10 years ago. Thank you.
Talk us through how bad it's become on the ground. What are families going through?
So I was actually in Galkayo, which is just on the outskirts of the hardest hit area this past week, and I met a couple of families that really stuck with me. They're completely devastated. They've lost their crops, they've lost their income because they used to work as laborers in other people's fields, and nobody is harvesting anymore. They can't afford to eat nutritious meals because they have no income and food prices are rising. They sold their last livestock, but they weren't able to get a decent cost for it because the livestock was so emancipated. So they decided to leave their homes and they went to a displaced persons camp. Unfortunately, 2 of their children out of 8 perished on the way. And when they were talking with me, they had no hope for the future. They were saying that there's nothing for them to go back to. They don't foresee any improvements anytime soon. And I was thinking that this isn't even the hardest hit area. And so things are really horrible in Somalia right now. We're really grateful for all the support that we're receiving so that we can provide assistance to these people.
For years, there have been drought warnings in the region. Did they go unnoticed? Were they ignored? What has the global response been like?
WFP has been very fortunate. We've had a lot of support, but you know, it's 2 years in now that this drought has been taking place. We're at the 5th failed rainy seasons, which happens twice a year. So for 2 years, we've been talking about drought, and I understand why there might be a little bit of fatigue, especially when so much else is going on in the world right now. But it isn't to say that we haven't been raising the alarm. Thankfully, because of the sustained support that we've all been providing everyone, the situation has been kept at bay, and it continues to be kept at bay because we've managed to mitigate the fear of famine thus far. And we're hoping if we can continue to provide assistance as the needs grow and the situation doesn't worsen, that we'll be able to avoid a famine declaration.
Drought and famine has become so closely associated with Somalia over the years. How hard has it made it for aid organisations like yours to get that message out there that this deserves attention and action immediately?
We're finding that we are getting the attention that it deserves, and we're making sure that we pair all of our relief with also investment into longer-term support. So as I've said, 10 years of investment into government systems and institutions that fight future climate shocks will make all of the difference. What is probably really important to keep in mind also is that we represent the food assistance side of things, but actually it's the other forms of assistance that are equally important to make sure that we arrest the drivers of mortality, and those are disease, poor hygiene, and dehydration. So WFP alone, we require $300 million over the next 6 months to sustain what we're doing now, hoping that the crisis doesn't worsen. But that's only the food part. And so our partners are also asking for support.
And while we're on the subject of food prices, how has the rising cost of food impacted aid efforts?
So Somalia has been very dependent upon the Black Sea and Russian and Ukraine imports historically. And recently, we have tried to provide assistance to make sure that that dependence is mitigated a bit, and that we're ensuring that the local economy is able to provide the assistance that's needed. So we provide our assistance in cash, and we make sure that we work very closely with the business community so that prices don't rise beyond what people's means are and that they can continue to meet their basic food requirements.
Now, Laura, there have been calls for wealthy countries to compensate Somalia for feeling the impacts of climate change. This is a country that has suffered those conditions despite not contributing to them. Is the international community likely to agree to terms like that?
That's a really good question, and I know it's being actively debated in the halls of the United Nations General Assembly, but there are also a number of effective climate mitigation and social assistance initiatives that are also worth considering. Life-saving work is complemented by longer-term investments, such as our collaboration with the international financial institutions, the World Bank, where we strengthen the capacity of Somali institutions to provide social assistance. And so I think as we look more at how we can build up community resilience, providing them with boreholes for water support so that they can continue to feed their livestock and water their crops, that we'll be able to also mitigate some of these climate impacts.
Laura Turner, it's very important work that you're doing, and we appreciate your time to tell us about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.